Hey Greg, thanks for coming in today.
Hey Doc.
So the reason I asked you to come in is the pharmacy's been faxing me for renewals on your anxiety medication, and I've been sending them in, but it's been a while since I've actually checked in with you. So how have things been going in the medication? How's your anxiety?
So things are okay. Recently I did lose my job. I'm not working right now.
I'm sorry to hear that.
Yeah. So
You had that job that your dad helped you get with his friend's construction site.
that's right.
What happened?
So they did find me smoking on the job, one of the breaks, and apparently that's not allowed. So here I am.
You're not allowed to smoke? Don't a lot of the guys in the construction site go out for a cigarette or?
I was smoking pot, so apparently they see it. They have different rules, even though it's practically legal now. So I don't know. That's what happened.
So you're pretty upset about that.
Yeah.
What have you been doing with your time?
Just hanging out with my parents in the basement, still at my parents' place. Playing Xbox. So some of my friends aren't working, so can't see them except for on the weekends. So most times I am by myself. Yeah.
Well, tell me a little bit about the anxiety level. How has that been?
So depends. I find it's good when I'm smoking.
Pot.
Exactly.
Okay.
And when I do go long without it for some reason, it's just I don't feel good. So I think that the pot is helping it a lot.
How much are you smoking?
So it depends on the day, but I'd say maybe 5-7 joints on average.
A day?
That's probably an average day.
Okay. And are they large joints? How much do you put in each joint? Do you know?
They're probably about around a gram maybe.
Okay. Where are you getting it from? Do you know how much THC is in it, or what the concentration of THC is, the active, the one that you get the high from? Do you know how much is in it? Or?
I have no clue. I don't know how to even find that out. But I have a friend. He has good hookups, and that's how I get it.
Okay.
Yeah.
What's the longest you've gone in the last month? Have you gone any days without smoking?
I think one day I ran out and I didn't see my friend until the following day and just didn't feel good.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you feel it's helping your anxiety?
For sure. Oh yeah.
How's your sleep?
Again, sleep is good when I smoke a joint before bed. Okay. It's pretty good. Well,
are you using any other substances, alcohol?
Alcohol, not so much. On weekend, one of my buddies comes over and we're just playing Xbox. We have a few beers. And
what's a few?
So we get a pack of 24 beers and we just go through it together.
Any other substances? Cocaine, heroin, any other?
No.
From what you're telling me, I know you feel like the pot is really helping you with your anxiety.
Definitely is.
My worry about it is that, studies have shown, and we know from experience, that marijuana actually makes anxiety worse in the long run. It makes depression worse, it makes anxiety worse, and it can actually make a lot of mental health issues worse. So even though in the short term you may feel immediate relief, in the long term, smoking the amount that you're smoking may actually be making, and likely is making, your anxiety a lot worse.
I don't see how. That day I told you if I ever go without it, just everything sucks. I find my mind doesn't work, more anxious. My sleep is worse. I just feel like most people just think negatively of it. They don't get. I find most society, whether it was at work, my parents, or most people think of it as this bad drug. But I find it's really helping me.
Do you find that you're using more over time, or has it pretty much been consistently 5 to 7 joints a day?
Probably more so since I stopped working.
So are you spending the majority of your income on the marijuana and the alcohol?
Probably. That's my biggest, just because I don't have to spend on other things at home.
Okay.
So I'd say most of it goes to that, yeah.
Okay. And when you have those feelings that you're talking about, just feeling lousy on the days that you don't smoke, or you run out of money, or don't have access, or whatever, do those feelings go away when you start smoking again?
Totally.
So I'm wondering if that's withdrawal that you're feeling. Your body may be so physically dependent or so used to having marijuana in it every single day, cannabis, that when you stop, your body actually experiences that as withdrawal. I mean, so one of the things we know about cannabis is that when people have something called a cannabis use disorder, so they're using a lot of it every day, they're experiencing some withdrawal from it, that often it makes their anxiety worse. They feel that they're not so motivated to do things or to meet their goals. And I think that that's what's happening with you. I think you have something called a cannabis use disorder.
What do you think we should do from here?
Well, I think this is an ongoing conversation. I think that maybe you and I should meet a little bit more regularly to talk about this. I've been sending in your renewals for your medication, but I'd like to meet with you a few more times to talk about how cannabis might be affecting you and to talk about what does it mean to have a cannabis use disorder. But I am very worried about cannabis use in youth, especially. We know that people under the age of 25 are at greater risk for mental health disorders with cannabis. So you're 23, you're still not really, your brain actually, believe it or not, even though you're an adult, is still developing. We know that cannabis is not a good treatment or not a good thing to use for people under the age of 25, and it's not a good treatment for anxiety. I think this is something we can continue to talk about. If you're open to that, maybe we can schedule some more appointments and explore this a little bit more. And there are things that we can do to help you if you do decide that this is something I'd like to cut down or at least give it a shot. There are things that we can talk about that may be able to help you achieve that goal.
Yeah. I have to think about it. I feel it's a big step to change things right now. I'm kind of happy where things are. I'm not sure if I'm ready to stop everything, but I'll have to think about it.
Okay.
I see where you're coming from, but I want to give it a thought
So
first.
Greg, before you go, just a couple of thoughts that I had around ways to make it a little bit safer for you. While I don't think that anybody in your age category should even be using cannabis recreationally at all, there are a few things that you can do. So I know you're not driving right now, but if you were driving or at some point in the future, wait several hours afterwards before driving. The other thing is vaporization. So when you're smoking your cannabis, that's really affecting your lungs. So using a vaporizer may make it safer for you. Another thing to consider is the concentration of THC, which is the substance in cannabis that actually gives you the high. And you want to keep that as low as possible. So what we've been finding is that the THC concentration or the amount of THC in pot has actually been increasing. And you want to keep that as low as possible. So, maybe, I know you don't know the exact amount, but maybe you could talk to the person who supplies it to you and say, I'd actually like some that's lower in THC. Would you be okay if we scheduled another appointment next month just to pick up where we left off today?
Sure,
talk
let's
a little
do
bit
that.
more. So I'll send in your prescription for a month and we'll come
Let's
back
go.
next month and we can talk a little bit more and you can tell me more about your
Sure.
thoughts.
Let's start with that, sure.
Okay, sounds good.